Our next order of business is to play with compliance in raw and see what the impact is. But to do that, we're first going to make a couple changes. Because we're making a couple changes, I'm going to just go straight to the controls where we can adjust everything at the same time. I'm going to notice I put the title volume up to 500. I'm going to put the I time down to 1 second. This just emphasizes the impact of changes in raw and compliance a little more. So you can see, looking at it right now, that our peak inspiratory pressures right now are 15. When we do a manual, hit accept here. Let's see what we get. Sorry, things are going to change because I changed the settings. I thought I had already hit accept. You can see our peak inspiratory pressure is now 17. And let's do a maneuver and see what our static measurement is. Oops, holding that the wrong time. There we go. You can see our plateau. Let's do it one more time because I'm getting various values for that. Okay, it's showing that our plateau right now is 16. Oh, 17. That's what I wanted, because just playing with this, I've been seeing it going to 17. So when it's 17 and 17, it means there's very little raw, right? Our raw is only 5, almost negligible. And so that although peak always has to be higher, sometimes it might be like 17.4 right now. And when I do a plateau, it falls from 17.4 maybe to 16.9. Either way, it rounds to 17, reads the same number, but plat's always slightly lower. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a raw, which inside is got a restriction. So the raw here is 20 instead of 5. It's the only change. Everything else remains the same. And then see what occurs. So notice we immediately on the first breath went from a peak inspiratory pressure of 17 to a peak inspiratory pressure of 20. No change except for more raw. Well, what happened to plat? Static measurement, inspiratory hold. Notice, still 17, because plateau reflects changes in static compliance, where peak reflects the difference between peak and plat reflects the changes in raw. So when raw goes up, the difference between the two gets bigger. And that's what we're seeing here. Plat's still 17, but now instead of our peak being 17 as well, it's gone up to 20. Well, what happens when we return our raw to 5 and simply make a change in our raw? So in our static compliance. So notice as soon as I connected 5, we're back to 17 again. And again, if we look at our plateau, right, we get 16 or 17, just like we did before. So now what I'm going to do is follow your order in your lab guide, which says to reduce your compliance from 0.4 to 0.2. So let me just disconnect the vent for a moment and do that. All right, reconnect the vent. Notice immediately I'm hitting my high pressure alarm. Wow. And that is also, notice what's happened to my respiratory rate. With this big bounce of sudden ending, which we'll talk about in a moment, of the breath, we're getting a bounce at the bottom that's also triggering, making the ventilator think our patient wants this really high respiratory rate when in fact he doesn't. So let's first go look at our alarms. Actually, let's look at our tidal volume first. So notice we're supposed to be getting about 500. We're getting around 450. Why is that? Because as soon as we hit our high pressure limit, it ends the breath. So I time actually gets shorter and tidal volume gets less. And that's what we're seeing in this case. So I don't want to go and change my alarm for nothing. But if our patient actually got really sick like this and required higher ventilating pressures, then I'm going to have to make a decision. Do I want to turn down my tidal volume or turn up my alarm? I'm going to turn up my alarm right now just to show you how much. Let's turn it up to 40 just so we can see where our peak pressure will go with this change in compliance. Okay, so you can see our peak pressure went from 17 up to 29 just because of a change in compliance. And now because the lungs are stiffer, they're getting more of a bounce on the bottom, and so we actually have auto-triggering. So I'm going to also reduce my trigger, make it less sensitive. Well, even 2 is not enough. So this guy is really, oops, sorry. Did I do it the wrong way? There we go. Okay, sorry, that was my bad. I went the wrong way. So putting it to -2 actually did take care of the problem. I went from -1 to -2. That took care of the auto-triggering problem. And so, that change in compliance had 2 impacts. One, increase in our pressures right away, as well as the need to turn down our sensitivity. Remember, we always want our sensitivity as sensitive as we can without auto-triggering. So our patient is a silver box. They can't make any effort, but when our sensitivity is anything less than -2, it starts making more sensitive, in other words. See, right away, auto-trigger starts appearing and our respiratory rate starts going up. So we know we have to make it a little less sensitive. The way to do that is the patient has to draw from here instead of only -1, -2 now off baseline. All right, now the next question is, our peak is 29. What is our plateau? So let's go back and do a static measurement. Look at our plateau. Again, it has to be marginally lower than our peak, but in this case it's less than 1 centimeter water pressure less than our peak pressure. But our plateau reflects compliance, and our compliance has worsened, which means we get less volume for each centimeter water pressure. So in order to get this tidal volume of 500, we need more centimeters of water pressure.